The scandal that shook sister wives wasn't just a story, it was a storm that tore through a 25-year marriage. It started quietly, with private conversations with someone who didn't exist. A voice promising the attention and love Meri Brown had been missing for years. We all saw the leaked clips, the admissions, the confessions of love for a stranger. But after the divorce, the public fallout, and the media frenzy, one question remained: was Meri a victim of a cunning online hoax? Or did she betray her family intentionally? To answer that, we have to look at the state of her marriage before the catfish appeared. This wasn't sudden. It was a slow unraveling. By 2015, Kody Brown and a large part of the audience painted Meri as a woman who abandoned her marriage for an online fantasy. The defense would argue something very different. The marriage was already dead, and Meri was searching for life. The seeds of the scandal were planted years earlier. Kody had emotionally withdrawn, leaving Meri increasingly isolated. A major turning point was the 2014 legal divorce. Meri, the first and only legal wife, agreed to divorce Kody so he could marry Robyn and legally adopt her children. On camera, it looked selfless, even noble. Meri smiled, held Robyn's hand, and called it just paperwork. But that paperwork changed everything. For 24 years, Meri had a unique position in the family: the first wife, the legal anchor. That status gave her security and a kind of symbolic authority. Signing the divorce papers stripped her of that security. She was legally now on equal footing with Janelle and Christine, and perhaps even lower, because her own child was grown. Kody admitted this shifted the family dynamic. He focused on Robyn and her young children, leaving Meri more and more alone. Their interactions became formal, perfunctory. He was a landlord checking in, not a husband. Kody himself admitted that he had withdrawn affection when his criteria for his wives weren't met. He had effectively emotionally divorced Meri years before she ever spoke to Sam Cooper. Their marriage had become a partnership in name only. Then came Sam Cooper, the man, or so she thought, who offered everything Kody had withheld. He listened, admired, praised, and made Meri feel alive. To a woman who had felt invisible for years, it was intoxicating. The defense argues that Meri wasn't betraying Kody intentionally. She was craving life, connection, and validation that her husband had stopped providing. From Kody's perspective, it was betrayal. The foundation of their plural marriage depended on loyalty and trust. When Meri turned her heart outward, she threatened the system. The conversations with Sam later revealed as Jackie Overton were intimate, romantic, and critical of Kody. She sent suggestive photos, whispered love, and planned secret meetings. To Kody, it wasn't confusion. It was a public act of defiance, a direct challenge to his authority. There were also rumors that the catfish had promised Meri a way to legally and financially separate from the family. Kody supposedly discovered this, which fueled his rage. This wasn't just heartbreak. It was territory being threatened. The showdown played out not in courtrooms but under the lights of Sister Wives Tell-All specials. Meri claimed she had been manipulated, that it was a confusing situation. Kody called it infidelity. They couldn't agree on the nature of the crime, which meant they could never agree on forgiveness or restitution. Kody publicly doubted her remorse, interpreting her tears as performance rather than repentance. Over the years, the confrontations became ritualistic. Meri maintained hope and optimism. Kody grew colder, repeatedly stating the romantic side of their marriage was gone. The fight over the wet bar in Meri's Flagstaff home wasn't about furniture, it was about control. Kody refused to let her build a life independent of his approval. There's a theory that Meri stayed partly due to her faith. In their Mormon beliefs, her eternal salvation was linked to her husband. Leaving him could have consequences beyond this life. Kody's rejection became not only emotional but spiritual, using faith as a form of control. Other wives observed this dynamic. They realized the neglect Meri suffered was not unique, it was a warning for any wife who fell out of favor. Christine eventually left, seeing that Kody's forgiveness wasn't earned but arbitrary. Meri's ordeal became a cautionary tale, showing the cost of disobedience in their plural system. Kody's ultimate ruling was cruel. Meri would remain a wife entitled but stripped of love, intimacy, and respect. She became a ghost in her own marriage, living alongside him without connection. Watching him form a life with Robyn, her punishment was constant, designed to be an example for the others. But Meri reclaimed her power. After years of endurance, she left. Kody's authority over her ended. She overturned his sentence herself, choosing freedom, dignity, and her own happiness. The final verdict was hers. She decided she deserved more than polygamist purgatory. The long-running courtroom drama closed quietly, with Meri walking away. The ultimate question remains, was Meri Brown a victim, enduring neglect and a sophisticated hoax, deserving of empathy, or a villain who betrayed her family and faced the consequences? That judgment is now yours. Meri Brown's voicemails to her secret lover were shocking, not because they were private, but because they revealed a side of her the cameras never captured. In one infamous recording, she mimicked Kody's voice, taunting him in a childish, mocking tone. Her words dripped with contempt, frustration, and exhaustion. She complained about her sister wives, about the endless expectations of her marriage, about the suffocating rules she lived under. Listening to these recordings, it's clear this wasn't a woman trying to patch up her family, it was a woman venting, scheming, and airing grievances she'd held inside for years. She revealed every fight, every irritation, every pang of unhappiness to an outsider. In their insular world, this was considered a cardinal sin. The prosecution argued that these voicemails exposed Meri's true nature. The tearful, victimized woman seen on television was a performance. The real Meri, according to them, was plotting, complaining, betraying her husband, and making a mockery of her family. It was not a plea for help. It was, they said, a confession of a traitor. But the defense urged a different perspective. They reminded the jury who Meri was speaking to, not a real person, but a manipulative trap designed to prey on her loneliness. Jackie Overton, the catfish, had spent months grooming her, isolating her, and convincing her that Kody and her sister wives were the enemy. Overton became Meri's only source of comfort and validation, then stoked anger and frustration in a continuous echo chamber of manipulation. Meri's rage wasn't her own, it was reflected back at her, amplified by the predator's careful psychological strategy. It was akin to brainwashing. Imagine a prisoner of war, fed a constant diet of propaganda, guided to distrust everyone but the captor. Eventually, the prisoner parrots the narrative. Is the prisoner a traitor or a victim? The defense argued Meri was in exactly this situation. Her declarations of love for Sam Cooper were for a fantasy, a mirrored reflection of what she felt she deserved: validation, admiration, and understanding absent from her own home. The catfish manufactured every ounce of her anger toward her family. Those voicemails were not evidence of villainy, they were a tragic record of manipulation. Jackie Overton herself was critical to the case. She wasn't a casual fan or a random trickster, she was a professional predator. Overton created an elaborate persona, Sam Cooper, complete with fake friends, family, and assistants, all carefully constructed to make Meri believe in a complete, immersive reality. She targeted Meri specifically, a famous yet isolated reality star, building a universe designed to lure her into dependence. Overton's subsequent actions, leaking voicemails, spreading rumors, and publishing a tell-all book, proved the malicious intent. She set the trap and profited from the fallout. Meri was not blameless. She engaged with the catfish, made choices, and revealed private family matters. But the defense argued the real crime was Overton's manipulation, not Meri's reaction to it. The children, particularly Meri's child Mariah, now Layan, added complexity to the narrative. Layan was deeply hurt, cutting off contact for a period, showing how Meri's actions impacted her family. This was devastating for Meri, perhaps more than Kody's coldness. But over time, Meri worked to rebuild trust, proving her capacity for accountability. Layan's eventual forgiveness became a key point for the defense, showing that reconciliation and growth were possible. Kody Brown's behavior, however, painted a different story. His response to Meri's emotional affair wasn't just about hurt, it reflected a pattern of control, conditional love, and a fragile ego. He applied the same harsh judgment to Christine years later when she asserted independence, framing her actions as betrayal rather than natural self-advocacy. His inability to examine his own role in the breakdown of relationships revealed a deep narcissism. Kody's punishment of Meri was disproportionate, more about dominance than justice. The scandal also reshaped internal family dynamics. Robyn, the youngest wife, emerged as a central figure. Publicly, she offered Meri empathy and support. Privately, insider accounts suggest she subtly reinforced Kody's punishment, ensuring Meri remained isolated while Robyn consolidated her own influence. In this new hierarchy, Meri became an outsider in her own family, while Robyn strengthened her position. Meri's path to independence went beyond emotional recovery. She joined Lulau, a multi-level marketing company, achieving remarkable financial success. This was a declaration of autonomy, a refusal to remain under Kody's control. She later purchased a bed and breakfast tied to her family's heritage, a crowning achievement of financial and personal independence. The BNB became her refuge, her queendom, and a tangible symbol of liberation from Kody's control. Over time, the perspective of the remaining wives evolved. Christine and Janelle came to see Kody not as the wronged husband, but as a controlling patriarch whose favoritism and cruelty had dictated Meri's punishment. Christine left Kody, recognizing that staying in a marriage governed by conditional love and control was untenable. Chanel followed her own logical conclusion, seeing the unsustainable patterns of control and choosing independence. In essence, the Brown family jury Christine and Janelle had concluded that Kody was the one truly at fault. Meri's ordeal wasn't isolated, it was the first crack in a family structure built on control, rather than mutual love. Her catfishing scandal didn't create the dysfunction, it exposed it. While Meri bears responsibility for her choices, she was not the calculating villain Kody portrayed her to be. Kody himself had contributed to the conditions that allowed the emotional affair to occur, and his decade-long punishment went far beyond reason. Ultimately, the real verdict lies in context. Meri Brown was a flawed, wounded human being in an unconventional, loveless marriage. She made a catastrophic mistake under extreme manipulation. Kody Brown was a neglectful, controlling partner whose response exacerbated the harm. The scandal revealed not only Meri's vulnerability, but the structural rot in the Brown family's plural marriage. Meri reclaimed her life, rebuilt trust with her child, and forged independence. The scandal was not the end, it was a turning point, highlighting both personal growth and systemic failure. The collapse of the family hierarchy that followed, including Christine and Janelle's departures, was inevitable. Meri's story was the first, most brutal symptom of a broken system. The ultimate judgment, the catfish scandal, was not solely Meri's crime. It was a mirror reflecting the loveless marriage that created the opportunity in the first place. Meri Brown's voicemails to her secret lover shocked the public, not simply because they were private, but because they revealed a side of her that cameras never showed. In one notorious recording, she mimicked Kody's voice in a mocking, childish tone. Ridiculing him with biting contempt, she complained about her sister wives, the constraints of her marriage, and the endless rules she lived under. Listening to these messages, it's clear that this wasn't a woman trying to repair her family, it was a woman venting, frustrated, and expressing long-suppressed anger. She detailed fights, frustrations, and deep unhappiness to someone outside the family, an act considered a cardinal sin in their tightly controlled world. The prosecution argued that these voicemails revealed Meri's true character. The tearful, victimized woman portrayed on the show was a performance. The real Meri, they claimed, was plotting, complaining, and betraying her husband. It wasn't a cry for help, it was, in their eyes, the confession of a traitor. The defense, however, offered a different perspective. They asked the jury to consider the context. Meri wasn't talking to a real person, but to a manipulative trap designed to prey on her vulnerability. Jackie Overton, the catfish, had spent months isolating Meri, building her dependence, and turning her against her family. Overton became Meri's sole source of comfort and validation, carefully stoking her anger and frustration. The defense argued that the rage in Meri's voicemails wasn't her own. It was amplified by manipulation, reflected back at her in a cruel psychological echo chamber. This was more than emotional misjudgment. It was a form of psychological captivity, like a prisoner of war being brainwashed. Meri was fed a narrative that vilified her family and elevated the catfish as her only ally. Her declarations of love for Sam Cooper were aimed at a fantasy, a carefully constructed avatar who embodied everything Kody was not. The anger she expressed toward her family was not the act of a villain. It was the product of a calculated, predatory campaign. Jackie Overton herself was central to understanding the case. She was no casual fan. She was a professional predator. The Sam Cooper persona wasn't just a fake profile, it was an elaborate world, complete with fictional friends, family members, and assistants, all designed to make the fantasy feel real. Overton targeted Meri intentionally, a famous yet isolated figure, and crafted the persona as the perfect antidote to Kody Brown. Where Kody was distracted or critical, Sam was attentive and adoring. This was deliberate, not random. Even after the hoax was exposed, Overton continued her manipulations. She leaked voicemails, spread rumors, and published a tell-all book, portraying herself as the victim while profiting from Meri's humiliation. This wasn't the act of a misguided fan, it was the work of a calculating predator. Meri was responsible for engaging, yes, but the defense argued the true crime was Overton's manipulation, not Meri's reaction. The voicemails weren't evidence of a scheming wife, they were the echoes of a victim trapped in a carefully constructed psychological game.